Hello everyone, my name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Hi, hello. Welcome to a chatty video that's probably going to be a little vloggy too. That is totally unprecedented on my end. Because here's the situation. I just picked up yesterday a project that I have not touched in years. The start of this project was in 2021, and it has been many years since I've last touched this project. So I would say probably since 2021. I picked it up yesterday because I just finished a trilogy of wonderful dragon books, and it did something to my brain, and suddenly this creativity drought that I have been in for all of 2026, wherein any kind of creative work feels like pulling teeth, wherein any kind of writing, like wading through mud, like trying to escape quicksand, if you will. I felt this urge to go back to this story and just look at it. And I was like, okay, let's go look at this. My friends, we are back to a project, as I said, I haven't touched in years, which is Godtouched. Have I ever told you guys the title of this? I don't know. Project Dragon. We are back. We are fucking back to Project Dragon. Its title is Godtouched. Fun fact. I pulled out yesterday. It took me 10 minutes to find this notebook because I recently cleaned my whole house. I don't know where anything is at this point because my mom was also helping me, so things are just in places they shouldn't be. Found my Project Dragon original notebook from 2021 with all of my lore and shit. I pulled out my Scrivener file for Project Dragon on my good old computer. And I had a little flip through of this, a little read through to remind myself of the work that I had done, the plans that I had made. And then I was like, okay, let me take this new notebook that I just picked up the other day. Serendipitous. Isn't it beautiful? The vibes are exactly it. Let me pick up this new notebook and let me just, first of all, do this page, which is very fun and beautiful and exactly the vibes. It's just missing a dragon or two. Then I was like, okay, let me do a little breakdown. Let me do a little breakdown of what I remember from this project. And so I literally just wrote, I remember this is multi-POV, obviously. I remember Maeve is my main character and Izzy is my second main character because there are two main thorough threads through here. And really, when I look at the whole story, I think I have three main characters, but we're going to talk about Jem in a second. And then I remembered Ira, one of my characters, is the love interest of Maeve and also is someone that I can't tell you because secrets. And then we have the bear, in quotes, another Godtouched currently running the cult. Izzy is my little Sierra girl. Isolde, she's my little Sierra girl, who is the catalyst to the events in this book. And then we have Jem Devore, or Jem, who is a rich kid who got stuck in shit he was not supposed to be in, but his father put him there. So his father's a fucker. And then I was like, okay, great, awesome. And after having read through my entire previous notebook of like my old notebook of all these notes, I was like, okay, what is my brain trying to tell me? And my brain is telling me I want to structure this book in a way where we have Maeve, who is my like the main focus of this book kind of a thing. She is who I've always considered to be my main character of this book. She is the current timeline. Her POV is now. This is what's happening right now. And I was like, great, awesome. Maeve is now. Then we have Izzy's timeline, and her timeline is going to be from a couple years ago to now. And it's going to catch up. And then we're going to have Jem's timeline, which is going to interweave in here as well. Like they're all going to interweave together. It's going to be very, epic fantasy, big, sprawling, all this kind of stuff. And Jem's, I was like, I would really like it if his was a different POV style. Like I kind of want to play with different kind of POVs and like present tense and past tense vibe to tell the story in an interesting way. And Jem's POV is going to be from his journals. So it's going to be like journal entries. So his is going to be first person, which I haven't written in first person in so long. So it's going to be interesting to write his stuff. And then I was like, okay, so we have all these different type of stories all interweaving in one because I'm going to have to I don't know if I'm going to have to write them all individually first and then try and weave them together in a way that would make sense to move the plot along, to make things kind of connect when they need to connect. It's going to be so fun. Like I'm sitting here and I'm thinking it and I'm like, this is going to be such a puzzle, and I'm so excited to piece it all together because I do have a lot of this written. I think I have 40,000 words of this draft originally written from 2021, and a lot of it I'm keeping because I know a lot of those scenes like live in my head rent free. Like I've written a prologue that is one of my best prologues I've ever written. I'm so proud of it. I got to go reread it to like see to see how things are going. But I like to, because it's been many years since I've looked at it, but I remember being just so proud of this prologue because it introduces our bad guy, essentially, the tone of this novel, and some interesting things that have to do with the title and have to do with the gods themselves. And it's supposed to not only introduce us to this situation going on, but it's also introducing us to many questions. And it feels so epic. Like I'm thinking about that prologue, I'm just like, fuck, it feels so epic. And it also like does not shy away from the brutality in which this book is going to evoke, I guess. Is that really the right word? I'm not sure, but listen, this is a dark motherfucking book, okay? And this is probably going to be a duology. That's what I have in my head as a duology, because I have the first book basically like I know the ending. I know where all the storylines are going to end. I know this moment right at the end of the book that's going to be like a fucking what the fuck is happening moment. And I'm so excited to write that. And then I know what direction the second book is going in. I have not yet like actually thought about the storyline in the second book because I think I need to actually work through the first book first and then see where my characters end to then proceed with the second book. But I feel like this is going to be like a really epic duology, and I'm so excited about it. And then I have scenes from Izzy's point of view that I've written before that I'm so happy with from my memory. Like listen, guys, this is my soul book. And since putting this book down, since putting it aside and doing my whole self-publishing career with A Second Story, A Little Luck, and A Favorite Fate, and then Merry and Bright, and then, now this year, like, trying to start up with Far Horizons and that whole series, and then thinking about Cosmic Latte and all these other stories cooking in my brain, I have always said to myself, Project Dragon is my soul book, and I will come back to it when I feel ready that I can actually do it justice. Because quite honestly, if I had continued working on it back then, which I stopped because of many different reasons, one of them I remember very clearly is that I didn't know what was going to happen next in the story plot wise. I just knew like the beginning threads of everything. I didn't know the whole story. Thought about it, world built, all this kind of stuff, and I got stuck. And so I put it aside, and then I, went completely different ways with my life. And I've always said in my head, I'm like, well, when I feel like I could do this book justice, I'll come back to it. And now it's been, I don't know how many years, 4 or 5. I don't know if I can do this book justice quite yet, but I really want to try. This is not me promising that this is what I'm going to be working on next. This is not me saying that Far Horizons is being put to the side completely. This is not me saying that Cosmic Latte is being put to the side completely. Those are still at top of mind. It's just I have been completely devoured by this idea of Project Dragon again. And last night I plotted the fuck out of this. Like, not completely structure wise, but in the way of like, okay, I broke down Issy's story and then Maeve's story, literally in the way of like, starts when she's a wee bean, semicolon, on the streets living in squalor, semicolon, then found by the lady, semicolon, then sold to the bear where she's carted through some bullshit, semicolon, tries to escape, semicolon, like all this kind of stuff. I'm like, this is what happens. These are the timeline events of these persons' lives. These are the big moments, I guess, that are living in my head. Then I did through Maeve's story, top to bottom. And then I brought them to like, how do we get to that very last moment? And I wrote some stuff in Maeve's story that I did not have in my head before yesterday. Then I went to Jem's story, and his is brand new because when I was writing him originally, I just knew that he was a little rich kid who got into some shit and was found by these dragon keepers in this dragon sanctuary, which is where Maeve is from. She is the lead keeper. She's like chieftain of this village in Ardnablan. She runs the whole shit. She runs the ship, essentially. Her and her keepers find Jem with a downed, almost dead dragon. Not actually dead. They bring it back to, the sanctuary and heal it and all this kind of stuff. But they find Jem amidst a bunch of dead bodies and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I had no other thoughts on Jem further than that. And then yesterday, I sat there and I was like, okay, how can I make his POV interesting and worthwhile in this book. And I've also wanted to play with potentially bringing in the royals as like the political machinations of this world. And I don't want another POV as in like bringing in one of the queens, but I was like, what if Jem is my little man who is leading us through what he doesn't realize is a lot of the cult's machinations, because there is a cult that's coming into power. They're leaking into all sorts of different states in this world, and Jem's father is kind of at the heart of one part of it, because Jem's father runs a lot of the dragon scale mining in this world, and Jem is just like, I just want to study literature and art and all the pretty things and like religion and stuff at school, but my father's making me study this like business side of things, and he's also making me do a lot of like secret spy shit. I'm thinking like The Will of the Many by James Islington, our main character in that one, kind of like going in specifically to be like gathering information. And I was like, ooh, that could be really fun. And then I kept going with that idea and like his storyline a little bit that we would get from his journals from the before they find him and, you know, pick him up as he's injured as crazy. He basically is in a magical coma at this point, and then the stuff that happens when he wakes up in the sanctuary. So I don't know what this video is going to be. I really don't, because I don't really know what I'm going to do next with this. I do have a bunch of like what I need to do next things. Like I need to figure out a bunch of different things. I had literally made a list for myself of like, these are the things that my brain knows that I have to do. So I probably will start picking away at that. And then I want to reread some of the writing that I did in this from back in 2021 when I was working on this originally. And I want to see where I want to go next, wherein I want to see if I can, you know, plot out in a better way, like really structured types of scenes and like arc and character wants, and narrow that down for each of my character POVs. I want to see if I can do that for book 1 and then see where that takes me. So welcome to a little writing vlog on Project Dragon. I am so excited about this, and I am simultaneously terrified, because I'm like, what the fuck does this mean for like literally any of my other projects? But hey, if there's any indication on the fucking vibe that this year has gotten so far, I'm letting my brain do what it wants to do, because when I try force it to do stuff, it doesn't want to do anything at all. Listen, Project Dragon is what's in my head, so that's what we're gonna do, and that's what we're gonna kind of chip away at and see where this project goes. So join me in this little update vlog type situation as I try and tackle an old project and see where it takes me. The Soul project is out, back off the shelf. It has not been shelved anymore. It is in my hands and in my brain. Because dragons. Hello, friends. Oh my god, I'm in the same shirt I did this first clip in. I'm sorry. I don't know if anyone else is like this, but I do a lot of like outfit repeats, i.e. literally just wear the same shirt every day for a while, or like every other day. And then I have like 2 or 3 t-shirts on rotation, and then I forget that I own like 20 t-shirts, and I have so many other t-shirts I could be rotating, but I rotate. So alas, I'm in the same outfit. But hello, friends. It is officially the 22nd of June today, and I want to pop in with a little update. I did talk about this in my weekend vlog just now, my weekend vlog that went up on the 23rd of June, that I have been doing a little bit of thinking about Project Dragon, and a lot of thinking about what the fuck my plans are. Because, as I said in that vlog, Project Dragon came in and completely derailed my plans for the summer, because my plans were originally in June to completely put Far Horizons aside and then work on Cosmic Latte, and I wanted to see if I could try and draft Cosmic Latte, like just trash draft it, just get through it top to bottom kind of a thing. But as we know, my productivity this year has been really shitty. My creative productivity anyways. I did work a little bit here and there on Cosmic Latte, not as much as I should have been. I was not actually plotting it or that kind of a thing. I just was kind of picking at it like a scab. Then Project Dragon came in and smacked me in the face, and now it's all I want to work on. I'm just like thinking about it in a way of like, okay, once this project is finished, what am I going to do with it? And I was like, finished? Last time I thought about Project Dragon, I had no idea. I put it on pause because I was like, this is my soul book, my soul project. I wanted to write something like this for my whole life at this point. Like I wanted to tell a story about a dragon, and I just, How to Train Your Dragon and all this kind of stuff. Like those stories fuel my soul like nothing else. Like my cozy books, they are my heart. This book is my soul. Like it is, like it's everything. And it's why why I stopped working on it in 2021, because I was terrified. And I also did not know what was going to come next. And I knew I was not a good enough writer at the time to do this story justice. And now that I'm here and my brain is like, okay, when you're done this, like, this is what we're going to do. And I was like, what? What do you mean done this? That's a crazy concept. But now I'm like, okay, like, I know my next steps. I have the idea of, like, or not the idea, I have the general sense of like where each of my story POVs are going to go. Because I don't know if I said in this vlog already, but this is a very big puzzle for my brain, because I've decided I'm going to be drafting this in each point of view and like all the way through. So I'm going to get into Maeve's headspace, do Maeve, and then I'm going to get into Izzy's, do Izzy, or like I'll jump around, but I'll do like POV by POV. I'm not going to do like chapter by chapter, because I don't know how I want to knit this together. And I think it's going to work better once I have all of the arcs, all of the story, all of the drafts, all the different chapter kind of the things broken up, however I wish to break them up. And then once I have those kind of smoothed out how I want them to go, I will start like piecing the book together chapter by chapter. And I have like this picture of myself in my head of doing it physically with like actual legitimate printed off chapters where I can like puzzle it together to see how it'll fit. I have a roadmap of what I want to do next, because at this point I've realized like the next thing that I need to do is think about the like center linchpin for this whole issue. Because yes, I've thought about the cult, but not enough. Like, there's things I need to think about more with the cult of Verdor. Like, I need to have a very strong idea of what Verdor is doing, the god, to like what his minions are doing, to what the leader of this whole thing is doing, and then also what that has to do with political movements, and also what that has to do with the dragon scale mining, because the dragon scale mining is at the heart of every single one of these POVs, because that is what, in Maeve's POV, that is what clues my sanctuary and my keepers, my dragon keepers, it clues them into what's happening, and it like brings it to the attention of the queens, because it's like, hey, people are killing dragons for dragon scale. This is not what we do. We mine dragon scale from the mountains of dead dragons, right? Like, it's not, we don't do this from live dragons. That's, no, dragons are religious beings. We do not touch them. We do not harm them. And then people are starting to harm them, right? So it's like, that's what brings them in. And then Issy, her whole story is because she is the seer. She is the catalyst for this whole thing. She is the one who puts into motion all of these events because she sees it happen. And then she gets sold off to the cult of Rador, and the leader of that cult, the bear, his name is Akkard. And he gets sold off to Akkard, and her whole story is like following the cult and like getting like a almost, it's gonna sound terrible to say, but stay with me here. She is like if a war commander had a pet dog at his side. It's the dog's POV of what they witness. That's what Izzy is in this situation, because she's treated like nothing. She is just this like tool for them to use to see into the future every once in a while, but they get tired of her because she doesn't have control over her powers. So it's all this like little things like that. So she gets that point of view, and then I do have to figure out a little bit more with Issy, because right now she's very passive. And yes, I want her to be mostly passive because that is like her role. I do also want her to have a little bit of more agency, and I want her to be able to like do things and then have maybe some people in her corner in this point of view. I don't want it to just be desolate tool of the story, because characters are using her like a tool. I don't want to use her as a tool. She is a very important character to the story. So I'm like, okay, I have to figure out Izzy a little bit, but I think I have like the gist of like where her story is going to go. And then Jem's story is the biggest one, because Jem is this little rich kid who, he is going to be in essentially the University of Ensgard, which I have officially named. He was originally in the Ensgard Lyceum, which is the younger institute of learning for kids. He is now in the Ensgard Conservatory, and he is put through the School of Diplomacy by his father, because his father wants him to spy on some people at this university, and also like he wants to indoctrinate Jem into the business of like mining and business of that kind of stuff. But Jem, he's my little sweet soft artistic boy. He just wants to study literature and magic and fun stuff like that, because that is what his heart desires. He meets this girl there. Her name is Feyfira, and she is a like a doctor in training. Essentially, she is a cleric. She has clerical magic. She's doing that, and she's doing like a double major essentially in alchemy as well, because she's super smart. She wants to learn all the things. And so Jem kind of becomes friends with her, and like it's this whole thing. But his point of view is told through his journal entries, where he's going to be going to these events with his father. He's going to be doing things because of his father against his will, sort of. But he's also like, he does get interested in some stuff because he starts realizing that something else is going on that he doesn't think his father knows. And so he's like trying to also figure out some stuff. So that's what I have to really figure out, is Jem's whole shtick, because I need to figure out how his father is specifically connected to the cult. I know how his father is connected to the mining industry because he owns some of the mines or whatever, and he runs them that way. It's his business. But I need to know how he gets connected to the cult, how that whole thing goes down, and I need to know what information Jem finds out through his research and stuff like that. So I think it's gonna be really fun. Like, as you can see just from listening to my 3 or 4 POV talks, this is a fucking epic fantasy, because not only do we have Jem at the conservatory, we have Maeve at the Dragon Sanctuary, and then Maeve, because her point of view is the now, it's like what's happening now as the cult is growing and whatever. We have her and Ira's like relationship starting to grow, and then they get lost and they have to figure out some stuff, and they like stumble upon other things happening and all those sorts of things. And then we have Issy as well, who is like like each of the aesthetics of these point of view are so different, because we have Maeve, which is very natural, it's mountainous, it's foresty, it's dragons. We have Jem, it's books, it's ink, it's in a conservatory, a big fucking ass building, it's a university, right? And then we have Issy, who is being dragged through mud in a city, essentially, and like on battle lines and through all sorts of stuff like that. Like, she is being dragged through shit, literally. And it's like these 3 points of views could be each their own book, but because they all come together and cycle around all one thing, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to work this puzzle into a piece that makes sense and is cohesive. Oh, but it's so big. And then that 4th point of view, Ira, I really want to include Ira's point of view. And I've decided this weekend that it is going to be a point of view that I do write, because I think her point of view is also very important, because her point of view is also quite royal, and her whole shtick is she is the lost princess, essentially. Like the Second Death of Locke, that book where we have Grey as like a kind of secret royal or whatever, that's this trope for this POV, because Ira, her story would start kind of like Jem's, where she would get like insight on different movements happening in the world, but then her point of view kind of cuts a little bit after the massacre at Antover, and Antover is her family's royal seat, where she is one of the only survivors of this massacre. And so she goes into hiding, thus making her way to the sanctuary, the Dragon Sanctuary at Ardna Blan. And it's like her whole shtick, I think, is very important, but I don't think is like structural to the book. So I literally wrote a note at the top of it. It says, this point of view might have to remain outside of the draft I query with. Which brings me to another thing that I talked about in my weekend vlog, is that I think I want to query this story. I wouldn't be mad if I had to self-publish this, because I think it would be really, really nice to have full control over the story and get it to exactly where I want it to be and all that kind of stuff, and then self-publish it, because then I can make it as long as I want. I don't really have to worry about word count and stuff like that. But I think this could also really work well as something I query with. The way that Project Dragon has completely stepped over everything else I had plans to do this summer, and like my plans with Far Horizon specifically and all that kind of stuff, like it has taken over. Like, I also wouldn't be mad if Far Horizons was still the first project that I query with to get an agent, because I think that one is a little bit more commercially sellable, or like I can easily pitch that one. It has a lot of buzzwords. It has like easy comps to use, like Critical Role's The Mighty Nine. I would use Amina Al-Sarafi, like different things like that. Like, and it's like a D&D style with necromancy and pirates, pirate village, all this kind of stuff. I think it is more sellable, because I have no idea how to even pitch Project Dragon at the moment, because I have not even thought about that. I have started thinking about comps for it, and I have nothing. Like, what originally inspired me was Hall of Smoke by H.M. Long, but that is so vastly different from the story that I'm writing that I don't know if I could use that as a comp. And I'm like, I don't really even know what I would use as a comp. Like maybe Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne might be able to work because gods in power and the multi POV. You know what? I would put that one on my list. That's right. I would put that one on my list. Yeah. And maybe the will of the many for like the academia stuff, but I would have to, gosh, like comps are really, when it comes to using comparison titles, it is for very specific things, because when that gets into the hands of marketing, you don't want it to give the wrong idea of your story, but you also want it to give the correct vibe. And so if I'm like, oh, this book I'm querying is like if the Poppy War meets Legends and Lattes, you'd be like, what the fuck? Because like that's totally different, right? But if you're going for like the Poppy War's brutality and war versus like the Legends and Lattes found family, you can find a different fantasy with found family, right? So it's like, okay, if I want to do the will of the many as a comp, it would be only specifically for Jem DeVore's point of view. It wouldn't be for the whole story, which is kind of complicated because it's not like this is a academic book. It's not like it's set in an academia or anything. Like it's just Jem's point of view would be occasionally at the school with when he's learning and stuff like that, right? Like, and I think the will of the many would work for Jem's point of view specifically because it is this like boy who's put there by someone who doesn't necessarily want to be, who is a spy essentially, right? He's getting information for stuff. But yeah, it's something that I definitely have to think about. Now that I'm like thinking about it, I probably would use the Shadow of the Gods as one of them because of the godly stuff, the multi POV and the dragon. Maybe, but not even dragons in there. Shadow of the Gods. Maybe I could use like How to Train Your Dragon, which would be crazy. I don't know. I'd have to really think about it. But again, it's one of those stories that like it's so epic. I'd have to sit down and be like, okay, what the fuck is this book even about? Because I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, that's my brain is so discombobulated. I don't know what that means. I don't know what I'm going to be working on to publish next because like really all I know is that I want my next step in my writing career is to be attempting to query an agent and go the traditional publishing route. That does not mean I will never go back to self-publishing because I think self-publishing is fantastic and I love having full control over my stories and you know all that kind of stuff, and I really enjoy learning more about marketing and the back end of things. And so I'm like, I will publish like novellas myself. I think any romance stuff that I do in the future will be entirely my own. It'll be entirely self-published. There is so much epic fantasy in the self-publishing world that I also wouldn't mind having my full control over it in that way. I just think that these stories are marketable and I want to get into the traditional publishing sphere because I want to learn about that world. That's really all I want to do is I want to learn. I want to know. I want to have the insider's report on publishing. I want to know what it's like getting into the publishing world. I want to know what it's like to have a publishing house, to have an editor and marketing team behind you and an agent and all this kind of stuff. Like I want to know. I just do. I want to learn. So I'm like, okay, like that's the next step that I want to do in my career is to find my readers through the traditional publishing sphere. And whether or not that ends up being any of these projects I'm currently working on, who's to say? Like, I also have Project Mummy and Project Glass in my back pocket that I could also work on, which Project Mummy is that like gender bent kind of respinning on the Mummy with Brendan Fraser, which I'm really excited to get to. It's a romantasy. And then we have Project Glass, which is a Bone Season inspired dystopian that's dark as fuck that I'm also very excited to get to. And I think that one's also a duology. So it's like, okay, where am I in my brain? I have so many different projects that I want to be working on, but right now my brain wants to be working on Project Dragon, and that's where I'm at, and that's where I'm going to sit. So after 20 minutes of yapping, my next steps are going to be figuring out Jem's whole situation. And I think that's going to come with me doing this next step as well, because the next thing that I really want to do is start rereading what I have in my Scrivener doc, because I looked at it today. I have 56,565 words in a draft of Project Dragon from 2021. So what I want to do is read through what I have for these points of views to really figure out what is salvageable, what I have in each of these point of views, what 2021 Jen I wanted to do with this project. And I want to go through then and write the points of view top to bottom with the timeline that I figured out, with like the story beats of their stories that I originally figured out, and write their thing. That's what I want to do next. I want to start that. And I think as I'm doing that, I will figure out Jem's whole situation when I get to his point of view. I want to reread Issy's, I want to reread Maeve's, and then I want to also start writing Ira's and Gems as well. I mean, I have 6,000 words in Gems so far, but I have to rewrite his because his is written as like a point of view, and I want to make sure that his is specifically journal entries. So there's a lot of things, but that's my next step, is to reread what I have in my Scrivener file and then see what I go from there. Because right now I could just start drafting. As soon as I'm done rereading all this stuff, I'm gonna probably start drafting and writing more of the story and getting to the meat of it, to the end of it, whatever, because I don't really have anything else to figure out at the moment. Like, of course, I have my list of to-dos that I want to do. And as I said, I do have to figure out Jem's whole situation. More about the academy, I guess. I do have to figure out more about the political shit happening. And then I have to figure out a bit of a lore about the cult and that kind of thing. But that, I think, is going to come with me actually writing. And then I can take the time to figure out things that I need to figure out on the way. Because right now my brain is like, okay, let's read. Let's go back into the Scrivener file and let's see what else we can figure out now, because I figured out a lot. And I'm really happy with that. And I think it's going to be really, really, really fun to write. So I think Maeve's point of view is, I think, the point of view that I know the best and I know the most of, because she has been the main character the whole time. And I figured that out way early of like what I want her point of view to do. Izzy's as well is mostly figured out. And then I know the trajectory of the story for Maeve and Izzy specifically. And then Ira through that, because Ira is going to be attached to Maeve's point of view. Gems is the one that's the newest to me, and figuring out the whole conservatory of it all. I'm very excited to dabble in his stuff, because I think, honestly, I think each one of these stories has their own legs to be a book on its own. So I need to make sure that there's not too much happening, but like just enough, and they all coincide, and I need to figure out exactly how they all knit together and how the story comes together. Because as I keep saying, there is a linchpin at the center of each one of these, and that is the mining, the dragon scale mining situation going on, and how that has to directly interact with the cult. And so I'm like, okay, like I know there's a linchpin to all of these things, and it is this situation with the mining. So I need to figure out that situation, and then I need to figure out how everyone comes together for the end of this story. I mean, at the end of the story, they are not all together. They are still pretty scattered, but maybe book 2, because this is going to be a duology, I think. I don't necessarily know where book 2 is going to go, but I have a vague idea. At least I have weirdly, I have an idea from Jem's point of view where his part 2 goes, because I know where he's going to end up at the end of part 1, and his at the end of part 1 is like there's a new goal for him, there's something else happening, that kind of a thing. So I think, yeah. And what I have noticed as well, I also have a tendency to go back to particular tropes and repeat things with tropes and story elements that I really, really enjoy. One of the things that was going on in Far Horizons, I keep pointing back here also, if you don't know, this is my entire map of the timeline of Far Horizons that I have for book 1 pinned to my wall. That's why I keep referencing that as Far Horizons. What I have with Far Horizons, the idea of that one, the first one is a necromantic situation. Undead creature fucking up a village of pirates, right? And our characters have to figure out what's going on. And as they do so, they unlock and uncover something else at play. And that at play is to do with the gods and godly relics. Because I really liked that aspect of Vox Machina from Critical Role, where they went like on a quest to figure out all these different relics, right? They had to go pick up a bunch of relics and become stronger in that way. I love a quest of like a fetch quest, you know what I mean? I love that. I love finding things and finding information that way and learning more about the situation as you're also trying to get these items. And so that was my plan for that one. Essentially, book 2 was going to be a little bit more of a fetch quest type situation with these godly relics. And then I got to planning this one and I was like, what if there's some godly relics in here too? Because I really like the gods. I really like my old gods that I figured out for this whole world. I really, really like them. And the whole idea of Godtouched, the concept of Godtouched is that the Godtouched from myth and legend were the gods' champions. And they were people who were handpicked by the gods to have like extraordinary powers type of thing, right? To mete out the gods' plans and what have you. And they haven't been seen, like the Godtouched is a thing of myth and legend, right? But at this point in the book, we are seeing the resurgence of Godtouched because of something that is happening. Because there is this attempt from the god Rador that betrayed the excommunicated, kicked out god. I can't think of the word right now, but he was basically trapped somewhere by the gods or whatever because he's doing stupid shit. The rest of the gods are like, you can't do that. Stop that. Enough. And they were like, we're gonna put you in a cage. So he is trying to come back, and they're trying to basically open this gate to let the gods have more power on the world again. And Verdor specifically wants that for many nefarious reasons. And he doesn't tell his cult or his cult leaders, but he wants essentially to bring about a new order, is what he tells them. And like he plays with their displeasures about the world and that whole thing, you know, how political people work to like gain favor, but like he's trying to come back. And the other gods are like, bitch, no, but they don't have enough power directly on the mortal plane because they've removed themselves from the mortal plane due to the last war of the gods and why Rador is locked away. And so they have to pick champions to help have a connection with the mortal realm again so that they can, you know, have more of an influence and thus stop what's happening. So the Godtouched are coming back. Izzy and Akkard and Maeve are my 3 Godtouched at the beginning of this book. You see Akkard be Godtouched in the prologue. You see Izzy in her first or second chapter become Godtouched, and that's what she becomes, a little seer girl. And then Maeve, many chapters in, she falls to her death, and her god Thydea brings her back to life and basically saves her. That's the whole thing. It's the coming back to life. It's a bargain for your life that these champions are made. And I think it's just so fun. I love gods. I love playing with stories like this. I love it. I love reading fantasy stories where gods are trying to play in the mortal world, like Hall of Smoke, like that whole thing of being caught between the old and the new gods. It's delicious. It's delightful. That idea of a bargain with a god for your soul or for your life, your soul and your life, to thus become their champion. Delicious. That is where I'm at with this book. That is more of information you can get from this book. And I think, as I said, next step, reread what I have and then decide where to go from there. But I also think another thing I want to do is narrow down a pitch for this book so that I can start thinking about like concisely saying what this book is about as a whole, rather than like going into each individual storyline and like that whole thing. Because right now my author brain is so like zoomed slightly in. I need to zoom out and look at the whole thing as a whole. You know, I haven't yet like zoomed right into like character stuff, but I've zoomed out a little bit just to POVs. I need to zoom all the way out and then decide what I'm going to pitch this book as, because I think that would be fun to also figure out in this video. So anyways, that is the update as of June 22nd. Can you tell I'm so excited about this book? I am very excited about this book. Also tell me in the comments down below if this sounds familiar, if any of these tropes or any of these things that I've been talking about, if they sound familiar to you from other books, because I would like to start building a list of books that I want to read to see if they could be good comparison novels. And it has to be from the last like 3 years published, or like newly published books. Please and thank you. I would love that. Anyways, I will catch up with you when I have more to talk about, but I'm gonna go read some Scrivener stuff and see what the next steps are.
Hi, Bubba. You're so precious. Wow.
Hello, friends. It is officially June 25th today. My cat is dropping things. I don't know what's going on. What are you doing? Hey? What are you doing? Pretty girl. Silly. But hi, friends. I'm popping in with officially the end of this vlog, I think, because I think from here I know what I want to do next, and I know now kind of the shape of what's going on. Yeah, Freya says hi. So tonight I ended up going back through the 50,000 plus words that I had previously written in Project Dragon, and I didn't really edit anything. I didn't like let my brain really do that, except for like 1 or 2 little things. Like I changed the name of a dragon. That's about it. And then I just went through all those chapters making sure that her name was consistent. I then took all of the previous stuff that I had written, put it in an older folder, and then went through and drew the scenes up that I was like, yeah, I can work with this, into individual folders of what I want to work with going forward. We are now sitting at 45,561 words, which I think is pretty cool for this restarting spot. I do have to go through and edit each of those scenes that I've written so far, because there's obviously, I haven't touched them since 2021, right? So they are not exactly how I would write things now or whatever. But I definitely want to go through them, make sure that they are consistent with what I want the story to be now going forward. And then I just kind of map out and plan each of the POVs going forward from here. I basically have that done in my little like journal thing of a very, very rough sketch. So in here, I have, of course, Issy's story and then Maeve's story. Issy's is so short compared to Maeve. And then Gems, which leaks onto a second page, of course. But I think I want to take these like jot note ideas of like bullet points and kind of thing, and then like flesh it out more into like scene by scene, like what's gonna happen as I'm looking at this. But I realized last night also, as I was thinking about Project Dragon, is I don't want to get to a point in this story where I am scared again, or I feel like I've over planned or I've done too much that I'm no longer like in the mood to write it. And I think that's kind of what my problem was with Far Horizons a little bit near the end there, because I was, come here, you goon. She's being so funny today. She just wants my attention. She being Freya, my child. Yeah, last night I was like, I think one of my problems was with Far Horizons was that I had planned it so intensely, and I kept like every time I picked up the story again to work on it for the past year and a half or 2 years, every time I picked it up I would do more plotting and like more planning of like what's going to happen and all that kind of stuff, and I kind of took a little bit of the excitement away from it doing all that planning. I say with the plan of the timeline literally on my wall behind me. I don't know what it is. Like, I am such a planner, a plotter. I need to know where I'm going. I need a roadmap, all this kind of stuff. But for some reason with that project, it just kind of drained any of the enjoyment out of it for me. And I was like, huh, interesting. So with this one, I don't want to run the chance of that happening. So I have my like vague roadmap. And I think now going through and exploring these POVs and now knowing like kind of where I'm going, like I have the individual markers of like, we go here, then here, then here, then here. I think with that, I'll be able to kind of go forward in an interesting way. So, but I feel very, very good with having now reintroduced myself to bits of each of the stories. There are a couple things in Issy's point of view that I decided to leave in the old folder for now, because I want to read through her POVs a little bit more carefully with the idea of like what I have in my head now for her story, because I think a lot of what Issy is going through, I think I needed to move faster because it feels just a little bit more slogged down where I'm at. Like, she has 7 different chapters at the moment, 6 because the 7th one isn't really doing anything. But it feels like I should be already in place where she has been sold, where things have been moved forward and she is in these work camps. Because right now she's still just in the lady's house. And I feel like I've kind of sat there for too long with her stuff. But there are interesting things that I brought up in those chapters that I was like, oh, like I kind of want to figure these out a little bit. So I gotta sit with Izzy's story a little bit just to like really finagle it the right way, I think. Maeve's is going very well, of course, because I think hers is the smoothest. I went back through the prologue that I had written, and I think the flow of the prologue is fine. The writing is not where I want it to be, obviously, because I wrote it many years ago. So I need to brush that up and make sure that I'm kind of getting to the point in some sentences and paragraphs, some of that. But I think the flow and like the direction of the prologue makes sense. And I might just want to like trim it just a little, I think, to make it even more punchy and eye-catching, a little bit more like mysterious, I think is what I want to do with this, because it is 2,200 words and I think it could be more interesting and more like what the fuck is happening. I don't need to explain everything, and it can be a little bit more, I don't want to use the word punchy again, but like a little bit more scattered, because we have a man who's literally dying as our POV, right? So it's like it can be a little bit more chaos as things are coming together. So I have a plan now. I know what I want to do next, even though I find it genuinely a little scary. I find like I'm sitting here and I'm like, yeah, like it is kind of scary that I very much could just start writing this again. I don't know. I don't know if my brain is going to let me do that, because it is terrifying. But I would like to next start going into the actual story. I think what my very next step will be to go into the individual POVs that I have and actually do a full edit of it with like sentences and stuff like that, just to make my brain feel better, because I know my brain. My brain likes when things are nice and polished and wonderful. And just to make sure that I have like a general sense of where the story is, and then plan in that POV where it's going scene by scene by scene, as I explained earlier in this clip of like what I want to do now that I have this roadmap, can kind of flesh it out a little bit more. Again, I'm scared to do that without actually actively writing because I feel like I'm gonna scare myself out of the story. I'm just like, I'm wary. I'm so wary of this, and I think it's because it's such a unforeseen thing. Like I had not planned to touch Project Dragon for so long, and I just here I am carving it out, which is kind of crazy. Hey, we're back a little bit. Not a little bit, definitely back with Project Dragon. I am starting this new phase of it now that I know kind of the direction of each of the POVs that I want in here, even the additional POVs that I am definitely going to write, and I'm going to make the whole story to what I want to. But then once we get into the editing phase of this after draft 1 and draft 2, I will definitely get other people's points of views. Like I'll get some beta readers and stuff like that of like what POVs or what moments in the POVs definitely don't need to be there or like feel like they're not very structural. And then of course deciding on query stuff. So hey, who knows? Like at the beginning of this year, I had a goal set out for myself in my own brain to have Far Horizons ready to query, which is very much not on the docket anymore because I have, you know, a bingo board of things that I wanted to do this year. I wanted to finish draft 1 of Far Horizons book 1. I wanted to write a draft of something new, which originally was to be for Cosmic Latte or my weird little fairy cozy that was in my head for a little bit, Tread Lightly or Project Glass. I think I mentioned that as well. And I also wanted to write a novella. That's probably not going to happen this year unless something magic happens. And then I also wanted to finish draft 2 of Far Horizons book 1. I don't think that's I don't even think I'm going to get to draft 2 of that one. If I could finish draft 1 of Far Horizons book 1 later this year, I think I would be super satisfied with that because of the way that my creativity has gone this year. But what would be uber ultra cool is if I got Godtouched done this year. If I finish this draft at least, top to bottom, and start working with puzzling it together and all that kind of stuff. And as I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it in this video or vlog that I put up on the 23rd, because I film a lot of these clips concurrently when I'm doing 2 vlogs at once, because I get chatty and then I can't stop yapping, as you guys know from watching my videos. One of the things that I wanted to do with Far Horizons was run the query through those 2 people that I won query package critiques, I guess, a query critique through. I had 2 separate people that I won through 2 separate auctions, and I was going to use them for Far Horizons, but now that I'm here in the place that I am, I think I at least want to use one for a Project Dragon query. So what that means is that I have to go forth and have to kind of hook together a good hook, a good query, and stuff like that. But I think that's something I'm going to work on in the next video. But I did mention in this video at some point that I wanted to work on the hook of this story. And after I mentioned that in that clip, I did end up doing a TikTok for Godtouched that was a little bit hooky, that had the like classic list of character vibes. So we have the Dragon Keeper, the Seer, the Academic, the Lost Princess, and the Champion. And then I have the question, what happens when an exiled god wants to break through to the mortal realm and exact his revenge? And that is essentially what's happening. Like overarching, what is the cause of this? That is not obviously the individual plot lines or anything. And then I kind of just like threw other things that I wanted to mention. Like if I was building a hook, like I could hook it using like the cult of an exiled god is rising, putting the empire at risk, these characters, you know, or whatever. Like, you know, like there's always like sometimes there's a phrase on the outside of a book sometimes. Oh no, I'm not gonna be able to find one. Yeah, okay, so Angie kills a king, for example. The phrase under the title says she killed for a cause. Will she die for it too? Like those kind of little things. Or like on the back here it says the king is dead. Now what? That vibe, I was like, okay, the cult of an exiled god is rising. ... What would I add after that, kind of a thing? So I'm like kind of throwing around these like buzzwordy type things, and I was pulling out like the different buzzwords from each of the POVs, right? Because of course we have academia, we have exiled god, we have cults, which people love, we have dragons, which people love, we have revenge, people love that, old and new gods, we have a start of a god war happening, right? Like it's all these different things. So I have the very basic beginning brewing thoughts of like hook stuff. Like I did a hook brainstorm. So, and I was also like, okay, we could do it like with the exiled god angle, or I could do it with the dragon scale mining angle, which is like something to do with the mining of dragon scale. Like a down dragon draws attention to live dragons being killed for their scale in a world where dragons are revered, like, which leads characters down a path they never imagined, like stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, well, that's another angle I could take it, of course. And so I think in the next writing vlog, definitely going to be actively writing. And then I think alongside of that, I'm going to do some hook stuff too, and maybe even start brewing up a query that I could use. But I do want to do a video on building a query to give to these two separate people, whether that is refreshing Far Horizons query and handing that off to someone, and then writing a fresh query for Godtouched and then sending that off to the other person, or whether I do that for Cosmic Latte and Godtouched, or whether I do that just for Far Horizons or just for Godtouched. I gotta make my choice. But I think I kind of want to use one at least for Godtouched now, because I have a feeling that I'm gonna try and query this one now. That's crazy to say, but like if this one is ready before Far Horizons, I'm querying it, because of course. And then I have Far Horizons to work on as that one's in the query trenches, that sorts of thing, right? So I don't know. This is a whole lot of just like maybe plans. Nothing is set in stone. I don't know. My brain is so fickle this year that I kind of just want to let it do whatever it wants to do and chase these feelings of inspiration down the road. And that is what I have done with Project Dragon. And suddenly we're back in the world of Godtouched and I am thriving. Really, really thriving. And I realized actually when I was, another thing before I end this whole vlog, I was realized as I was writing Izzy's point of view, it feels like I'm not even in Revar when I'm writing Izzy's point of view, which is not correct because I am in Revar, but I'm just in a completely different empire than I'm used to. And I need to remember that there's also like magic around. Like it is very clear, and I need to include people who are not humans in these points of view of Izzy, because right now Izzy's point of view feels so much like ripped out of like I was gonna say like kind of like a Game of Thrones vibe. And a little bit, yeah, like she feels like it was a little Game of Thronesy, like aesthetic wise, where we have like lots of luscious food descriptions and like fabric descriptions and stuff like that, because I was really leaning into that when I was writing Izzy's point of view for the first time. I totally forgot that there are also elves and dwarves and gnomes and catfolk and birdfolk, and there's also lizard folk and turtle folk the further south you go, and like, you know, it's a fantasy world with so many different kinds of people. I need to actively make that clear in Izzy's point of view, because I remember reading just now, like I came across a sentence that I was like, Izzy's never really seen magic done before. What? She lives in Revar. Like there's magic everywhere. So I gotta fix that a little bit. So but anyways, it's been so fun to go back through and reacquaint myself with this story and to yap about it with you guys. Let me know down below what you think of this story. I know I have like talked so much about all these different ideas, and I haven't like promised anything of like physical anything coming out, but I feel like I'm such in a beginning stage with all these different projects in my head that I just need to lock in and let my brain take the project where it wants to go. And so I hope you follow with me in my reinvention of Project Dragon, touching back on a story that I haven't looked at since like 2021. It's now 2026, and we are gonna take these dragons all the way to the top, my guys. I'm so excited about this, like genuinely. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I will catch you guys in another video very soon. Stay kind and keep on writing.